MMA Roadshow, episode number 479. My name is John Morgan, and cold coffee is with me here in just a sizzling, scorching hot Las Vegas.
It's getting warm.
It's over 100 already.
Is it right now?
It's supposed to be 104, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, I heard yesterday they're like, we're going to get to our triple digits, and it felt every bit of it a little bit yesterday, but I haven't looked at the thermometer. I didn't see that we actually got over.
So
we're over right now.
Oh, summer's here in Las Vegas.
Yes.
If you were a media member or a fan getting ready, already looking ahead, looking past 302, thinking, oh, can't wait for International Fight Week, UFC 303, the return of Conor McGregor. If you're thinking about that, just make sure that you're ready for the heat as well, because it's going to be warm by then. Because it's a month out and it's already baking out there. So.
Yeah, I've been getting my little morning walks, and I've been getting out there early, but the sun, you could feel it, even by 8 in the morning. If you're get out later, by 10 o'clock, you're gonna roast. So man, that's awesome. But I like it. I'm
a warm weather guy. It's funny. So I've been in Vegas for 16 years now. I moved here in 2008. But the one thing that I will say that you just never get used to is once it starts getting pitch black at night, and it's still 95 degrees outside, and if there's no wind blowing or anything like that, it's just. And it just doesn't make sense to me. There's no sun in the sky. How is it still this hot right now?
I miss not having a pool. That was one of the nice things. Even when it was dark or whatever, just being able to dip into some water. Oh, it feels so good. But now I just enjoy that AC.
You got it down to 60 degrees now.
I don't, but that's the one thing. You give me a hotel, I will crank that to the fullest. If you're not paying an
AC bill.
But when you're paying that AC bill, I'm sorry, we're going to get used to the upper ranges of the temperature scale here.
We will feel it out. So get used to that. Just mark your calendars now for UFC 303. It's going to be hot. But right now it's UFC 302. We'll certainly talk about all that. Memorial Day weekend good for you. It was a rare off weekend from UFC events. I stayed busy. I did a Fury Grappling event. But how about yourself?
I stayed busy by doing nothing.
Can't beat it.
Just worked out and chilled and relaxed. I loved it. It was perfect. I think I went grocery shopping. That was my big thing of the day.
That was the big Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah. Went out and got some food, made some food. It was nice.
Big plans. All right. I got a chance to work with CM Punk this past weekend, so that was a lot of fun. The Fury Professional Grappling 10 event that we put on. If you want to watch the replay, it is on UFC Fight Pass. Some fun events on there. Luke Fernandez against Eric Anderson, our main event, was a lot of fun. Luke, pretty sure, is going to be in the UFC in the not-too-distant future in the light heavyweight division. So for him to get a chance to get in there with Eric Anders, got to be a little confidence builder, right? It's not an MMA fight, but it's still, you're in there, you're grappling with a UFC fighter, a 17-fight veteran at this point is Eric Anders, and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I made sure and get it right this time. He corrected me on social media because I didn't get the notes. Pat Sabatini was victorious over Andrew Cockle as well. That was a lot of fun, man. It was every bit the highlight we expected it to be.
But you never see. You don't see his grappling much. So I can see where somebody's no, there's no way he's a black belt.
I know,
because he just throws hands. Well, all the dude does is throw hands.
It's hilarious, right? Now he's on all of our Fury grappling cards now. He loves competing in grappling. Yeah, he's been on a ton of them.
But who doesn't? Every fighter that we've seen transition over to do either the Fury grappling, do the Fight Pass Invitationals. They absolutely love it.
It's so fun because everybody loves to compete, right? And they get paid a little bit of money. Not nearly as much as when they compete in MMA, obviously,
100%.
but they make some money.
But they're making money.
But they are making money, but they just love to compete. And there's the difference in the nerves or look, they'll tell you, to a man, to a woman, an MMA fight is still scary, no matter how many times you do it, right? And it's this big psychological mind torture of I could potentially get knocked out tomorrow. I could get knocked out in front of everybody I know. Here, it's not that. So I love the grappling events so much because of that. Because it's, especially when it's these UFC athletes that you're used to, because you're just seeing them in a completely different energy level, and they have fun. But again, I hesitate to say that too much because I don't want anybody to think that they just go in and they're whatever happens, happens. No. They want to win.
They want to win.
They want to win. They still, they're all competitive as hell. They want to win.
Yep.
But they're just way more laid back. It's fun.
And they're not. They're going to be in these grappling exchanges, and they're not worried about getting elbowed. They're not worried about getting punched. They're just, and they enjoy that. And there's something where probably they're I literally can operate at my highest level, but I don't have any fear. There's no fear going in it, so they're just enjoying it.
Just have some fun with it.
Did you watch? And this makes me think because on the flip side of it, Did you watch Uriah Faber's A1 Combat?
I saw the highlights. I did not watch.
Did you watch Uriah's match?
Yes.
So Uriah gets in there and decides to go in. All right, I'm going to have some combat grappling. And it's funny, when I saw him at one of the recent events, he told me he had something coming up, but he didn't want to say what it was. But he did say it was a grappling event. So the guy that he's going in there and he went with that hadn't fought in forever, Jeff Glover.
Jeff Glover, yeah.
So since it was a combat submission, there were slaps.
Yeah.
Glover's not used to that. So this was a case where a guy that's like, okay, we're going to be grappling, but Uriah's like, I'm going to make it so I can slap the shit out of you. And it was a big difference, and you saw how immediately the match changed once the slaps happened. And there was definitely there was rules to it. You can't slap anything. So there's a point where Uriah got on his back and they were off the floor and they were standing. You can't slap.
Right.
At one point, Uriah slapped, and then the ref was like, no,
whoa.
Like,
Uriah, this is not an MMA fight, bro. This is not an MMA fight.
You cannot do that. And Jeff was good about it too. It wasn't like he complained or whatever. I think he was just, one, he was like, oh shit, like one, I got Uriah on my back, and two, he slapped the shit out of me. But when they got onto the ground, it completely changed the game. So when I say on the flip side, you got these MMA guys that go into combat, go into grappling. They're like, I don't have to worry about getting punches.
Yep.
And then there's, say you want grappling, but you want to up it a notch, go to the combat.
So it's interesting, right? Because we've talked about combat jiu-jitsu as well. Because obviously, at CFSC we do a lot of different brands and different kinds of combat sports. We've talked about it. The thing is, the UFC won't lend us athletes for combat jiu-jitsu because they can get cut and they can get busted up and that sort of thing. So that's one reason we haven't done that. But I like the concept of it because it does make it more honest, right? Like those positions where you're like, dude, you could never do that in an MMA fight because you would get absolutely blasted. Then you can't stay there, right? Because you get smacked. So I actually do like the combat jiu-jitsu because sport jiu-jitsu, and I don't get me wrong, I love high-level sport jiu-jitsu, but like, man, when it's so much just like inverting and leg attacks, and it's just like they're hanging out in positions where if this was a fight, you would get beat up right there. The combat jiu-jitsu makes it a little bit more honest. So I like the rule set.
Yeah, and it changed the game for Uriah. I mean, like Jeff Glover was doing a really, really good job when they started until it got to the point where the strikes could actually happen. And then the whole mood of the match changed. So it's just crazy. But yeah, I mean, it made it really.
At 45 years old, man,
dude,
still out there. Just
he looked great, man. It was really impressive to see him in his element, man. But I think this is the perfect avenue.
Yep.
Like, this certainly didn't make me want to say, oh man, I want to see Uriah back in the MMA.
Again.
No,
right,
not at all. But I think he found his niche for his age group and where he's at, and he found a wonderful dance partner that had accolades in the sport as well. So it made a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him doing this again, 100%. So, but it was fun. It was a fun watch,
Absolutely.
So whereas I was like, well, let me just check out the thing. And watching the MMA fights, there were some good fights on the card, but you see the difference of watching a UFC event and smaller regional events.
100%.
But when you see high level of like this, combat jiu-jitsu, it was really, really cool. So if you guys are just like, and you're on the fence, you've maybe never seen combat jiu-jitsu, it's not like watching a regular grappling match. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's exciting. It's certainly a lot more exciting.
We debuted a new rule set a month ago in April for our overtimes, right? So we do 6-minute matches, 8 minutes for the main event. And then if there's no score, we just debuted it last time, and then we got to see it a lot more this time, where it's a first person to score wins in overtime. And it actually makes it really exciting because it's basically like, it's kind of IBJJF rules where it's essentially like if you want to pull guard, you can, but you got to be the one to initiate it, right? But if you pull guard, then you've got to either sweep or you can still submit. Or if you're the top person, if you get a takedown, and you don't even have to pass guard in the takedown, you just have to get the takedown, and you have to secure the position for 3 seconds, a 3 count, right? And if you get that, then you're the first person to score. But it makes the overtime like way exciting. Like, I like the Eddie Bravo rules where they like start on the back or start on the arm. Like, those are fun, but it lasts so long. You know what I mean? And so this is more like, and then even if they go in the Eddie Bravo rules, if they go all 3, then they have to add the time up.
The
so
overtime stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And then you find we seen where people were gaming just to get to the overtime
100%.
part.
So
it's like,
this, man, when you go to overtime, it's like it's first to score, so it's like there's like a level
sudden
of
death.
tension.
That's
it's sudden death. You know what I mean? And so it's
awesome.
like really cool. So it worked out good. So we've just had it for our last 2 events. But it's been fun. I think it'll be anher couple of months before we do another grappling event. But
boy, that sudden death, that changes the game. I think on
the game.
anything, if it's like, okay, first to score. That's you can't stall. You can't you got to get after it. You got to get after it.
100%.
That's cool.
And if you're
Very
on your
cool.
back foot, I mean, you're going to get taken down like quick.
Yep.
The key on that everybody I think is figuring out is that because if there's a takedown, you do have to establish top control for 3 seconds. That 3 count
that's good.
If you get taken down, just keep scrambling. Just keep moving.
That's kind of
right?
like a wrestling thing right
exactly.
there. You really got to establish it.
Exactly.
That's cool.
So it's kind of
cool.
It is, and a lot of it, I think, the idea was kind of based on obviously the work that we do with collegiate wrestling as well and stuff. So it's
Very
fun.
cool.
It's fun. And by the way, man, NCAA wrestling fans, man, I got to hear some stuff this past weekend that we're working on for the next NCAA wrestling season. It's gonna be cool. We're gonna see there's gonna be some top tier programs that are our first full season gained some attention in the wrestling community, and it sounds like some programs that didn't really know who we were the first time around were like,
do programs get paid?
Depends.
Yeah,
depends.
That'd be awesome. I mean, why wouldn't you not want to, especially if there's something for a lot of these these schools. But no, that's cool, man.
Yep.
That's cool.
Looking forward to it. All right, listen, we will talk UFC 302. A bit of an update. I have made a decision. This is a very hard, gut-wrenching decision.
Uh-oh.
I canceled my flight tonight. I'm not going out there tonight. Yeah, it was hard, man. I really thought it through, but in my heart,
because you missed the media day, right? You were sad you missed the media day.
Once I missed the media day, I was like, "There's just no reason to go anymore." No. It's those trips are fun for me, but I had some stuff come up that I kind of need to deal with here, and I've still got 2 more weeks of travel. I just got done with 2 weeks of travel. I've got 2 more weeks of travel coming up. My kid just got out of school. There's a lot of stuff going on that I'm kind of falling behind on that I need to catch up on. And so I made the gut-wrenching, very hard, very painful decision that I know in my head was right.
Yeah, it sounds
but
like
it was
the right
still
decision.
hard to do. I mean, look, I was smart. I had free cancellation on the hotel.
Yeah.
I did lose $99 on my airfare because I bought the cheapest, the basic American Airlines, like the basic economy.
Yeah.
Where if you cancel that, they give you a travel credit, but you lose $99.
Interesting.
So I did lose $99.
That's like a restocking fee.
It's like a restocking fee. Yeah, it's like
even
it's
though
so
nothing
dumb.
happened, they're like,
we're just taking your money, bro.
We're just taking your money,
even though we know you're going to use it on something else.
Yeah.
But so I will not be out there this week, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's funny you said. I just wanted those in there too. For Grind City Media, I had a chance to speak to Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it's funny because you were talking about it's not like I'm saying I wanted Uriah to be back in there, but I did ask Frankie. I was like, bro, big pay-per-view, your backyard. Tell me you're not getting that itch a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be on there. It's here in Newark. And he was like, I'm not going to lie. He's like, I start thinking about it. He's like, but I know my days are behind me. I'm not competing anymore. He's like, but yeah, big pay-per-view, backyard here in New Jersey. He's like, you do start getting that little itch. Like, what about?
Yeah.
What about? But it was great to catch up with Frankie, man. God, man, just talking to him, I just tying in New Jersey, knowing that Islam and Habib had been, there in New Jersey, and he'd been in the gym with them. I just wanted to talk about that and also about him getting into the Hall of Fame. It's weird to me when I started thinking about it, there's probably a lot of fans. Frankie Anderson is the name that I use a lot, right, for guys that maybe you didn't know how damn good they were because you just saw the end of their career. Because there's so many new fans, right? I mean, there's so many people that just started watching the pandemic or even in the time since. And so Anderson Silva was always my guy where I was like, man, there's people that just don't know how damn good, Anderson Silva is because they just saw the end. And I started to dawn on me, like, Frankie's probably one of those guys too, right? That, like, you had to understand not only, like, I mean, obviously, like his title run was in the early on. And
I was going to say that's the thing. People kind of forget that whole title when he held the belt, and he was always fighting guys that were much bigger than him.
Dude, the 2 Gray Maynard fights. I mean, obviously, were 2011.
Wow.
2011, and that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? Is Gray Maynard? Anytime you bring up the trilogy between them, I mean, you think we bring a Frankie Edgar, you think of that. BJ Penn, hell, yeah. I mean. The first 2 BJ Penn fights, the ones that were really the tense ones, that was 2010. That was even before Gray Maynard, So, yeah, wild. It was good. It was good to catch up with him. But there's a lot of people that he's one that I think if you didn't live that era, it's hard to put into perspective, like just how amazing what he did was. Like given his size, it's like, bro, I'm looking at pictures of him and Islam together. I'm like, Frankie, you look at that, man. Do you do you look at Islam and be like, thank God I'm not 155 anymore? He's like, well, Benson was pretty big. Maynard was big. I was like, you're right. You're right.
It's funny you bring up the Benson because, like you said, after the Gray Maynard's fights, there was that stint where he lost the belt. He lost to Benson twice, and then he lost to Aldo. But then he comes on a roaring path back with wins over Oliveira, Penn, Swanson, Faber, Chad Mendez before losing to Aldo again. But it's like
it's crazy, right?
It's crazy, man. The names that this cat fought, man, and I think you raised a good point. There was a point where Edgar. I mean, I think if you were around the scene at the time, you recognized like his greatness at that time, but with so many fighters coming up and at that time, and when people start going on these like losing streaks, you kind of forget these other things. You almost like maybe it's the recency bias or something where your head there's just so much information, so much stats, you kind of forget until somebody steps in front of you and you're like, oh my goodness, yeah, I remember this fight with this guy and this guy and this guy. And Edgar, he was always quiet and humble about like how good he was. He was never this guy out there throwing, hey, well, what about me? No. Look at what I did, So like people, if he wasn't pushing himself, and then he just kind of quietly would, kind of go into the background a little bit because there was much more of these brash, like openly speaking guys about, look at me, I'm the new thing, where Frankie just kind of sitting off to the side,
like guy on the mic, right? Just wasn't,
But I mean, like the dude, his accolades. I mean, there's a reason why he is the way he is, and why he's going
there's
to the Hall of Fame.
There's nobody that lived that era that doesn't see him as an absolute true legend. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like when they announced his name for the Hall of Fame, it's like you're goddamn right.
Any person that's 100%. Ever fought him was like this. That's a legend across the way. And like if that's a competitor that normally be like, I want to murder this man, this guy stand in front of me, but this guy would be the guy that they were like, I respect the guy opposite of me
100%.
Because he lived the game, he did it, and he did it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those guys that was always a good spokesperson, a good ideal of what a good fighter should be, because he represented the brand, he represented fighters, he was a family guy, and he was a guy that was a small guy that just like he was like the story character, like the short guy that there's no way he could possibly beat these bigger guys, and he's like, you watch.
Sure enough, he did, man.
And hard work and effort, man, and look what he did, man.
Respect. That dude is a true legend of the game, man. It was cool to catch up with him and talk to him. I hadn't talked to him in a while. He had a really interesting answer. I was asking about that, how like, hey man, there's a lot of fans that probably have like don't really know who you are, like don't really know your like if you were to tell them, here's one fight, watch this fight, and you will see who Frank Yeager is, right? He threw out some shocking ones. He said, I would say maybe either Yair Rodriguez or maybe my UFC debut against Tyson Griffin. I was like,
interesting.
Wow. I was like, those are not the ones that I would have thought. I mean, obviously, like I said, the Gray Maynard comes up. The BJ Penn comes up.
The Cub Swanson fight was a good fight.
Swanson. I mean, like I said, Chad Mendez.
Yeah.
Chad Mendez is another guy that I don't think people know how good Chad was as well, So
2 wins over Cub Swanson.
Crazy, man.
Look at that. The first one was a neck crank. 456 of round 5.
What I mean, insane.
I remember that fight being nuts.
Insane.
It's so
amazing.
That's cool. I mean, and that's one of those things, like, I think both of us are very good about not being like starstruck when you see these guys, because most, obviously they're human beings or whatever, but it's hard to not, when you see like one of these guys, just to be like, pinch yourself and like, that was really cool. I got to chat with this person today. If there's ever anything to sort of be grateful about, like in this field, we're certainly not getting paid mad amount of money, but
don't do it to get rich.
It's cool to, because they always say, don't meet your heroes or don't meet whatever. But there's often times where you get to actually chat and speak with somebody that's actually a really good human being.
Are deserving representatives of the sport. You're absolutely right, man. There's so many good ones in this one.
So I mean, that Frankie's a good one, man. So that's good. I mean, that's really cool. You got to chat with him today.
Yeah, it's good catching up with him. So check that out for Grind City Media, if you will, please. Now we'll talk about UFC 302. As I said, won't be making the trip out there, but we'll certainly be watching on pay-per-view on Saturday.
I like the couch watch. I'm telling you. I mean, because one, you would have been up to the middle of the night or the early morning.
I didn't
go straight to the airport.
Did not even have a hotel on Saturday. I was going to check out on Saturday. I had late checkout guaranteed, but I was going to leave the Hilton at 3.
Yeah.
Go straight to the
drag
arena.
Your luggage to
drag my luggage with me,
event.
and I had a 6 a.m. departure out of Newark Liberty.
6 a.m. That's crazy.
I know. That's what I was. I was going to take that one back home. So
because you probably wouldn't leave the venue till like 3.
Exactly. I was just going to go straight to the airport.
Yeah.
Post up in the Admirals Club. maybe have a cocktail or two.
Maybe. You're like, is that wine closet open? Is that fridge open?
You're like, sir, are you actually drinking at 4:30 in the morning? But like, does it count if I've been up all night? Like, it's weird if I was just waking up.
Yeah.
But I've been up all day, so it's different. So give me my wine and take your judgment elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I will not miss that. But Pacific time zone is fantastic. The West Coast, and watching was not bad. But I think I think this is for most people the most intense fights are the top two fights. I mean, Kevin Holland, Mihail Elisichuk could be.
That's going to be a good fight.
Could be a lot of craziness.
Yep.
I like Jelton Almeida and Alexander Romanov as well. Like I think that could be an interesting fight as well. I mean, there's some decent matchups on here. I like seeing Mickey Gall back. That's wild. Nico Price versus Alex Morono, a couple just of old school dudes that are going to throw down. Like, that should be fun. So
Phil Rowe, Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews, I feel like we've been watching this cat fight for like ever. He was like a baby when he first came into the UFC.
Kid growing. How have we been watching him for 10 years and he's not even 30 yet?
It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable. Like, that dude is good. So there's a lot of fights that
the Price Morono
is.
I think that could be nuts, dude.
Great matchmaking there.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit, but if we don't go into that, are you leaning? I know you love Price. My head tells me Morono. I love Price's chance, but Alex is tough, man.
I love Nico Price, man. I love him.
He's such a great character.
He's a wild man.
Yeah.
He's a crazy man. But yeah, I feel like that right now Morono is just kind of operating on that's it. Morono is somehow like getting better at this point in his career. You know what I mean?
He's got a great mind for it. When he talks about fights, I mean, like this is a cat. I don't know if he's ever done commentary.
He does commentary for Fury I was going to say on the ones that are generally run on. You probably don't watch those because they're on Sundays, which is kind of typically our days off or whatever. But yeah, he does a lot of commentary for them.
He's got a brilliant mind for breaking stuff down, man. He really does. And I think it bodes him so well when he goes in these fights because I really think he understands the pros and cons of his opponents. But I mean, like Nico, you know what Nico's going to do. Nico's going to go forward and he's going to fucking go balls to the wall. I mean, he's so fun to watch. But I think that fight's going to be really, really good. I mean, as it goes down the line, I mean, even the Andre Lima, Mitch Raposo one, I think that's going to be an interesting start to the night. I mean, I think it has, good potential. The Jocelyn Edwards, Aileen Perez, I mean, like, that's fun. I mean, like, I love watching her weigh-ins because she always does that weird, like, modeling thing. It's so funny. But it just cracks me up because she literally slow walks like the catwalk. Yep. She'll walk up and then pivot forward to step on the scale. She works it, and every time, all of us in the weigh-in room are just sort of like chuckling. But I absolutely adore it because now it's like a thing. At first, I was like, when the first time I saw it, I was like, well, that was weird. That was kind of funny. And then she did it again. I was like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. This is her thing. Like, this is her thing. So now that's, I guess, one thing I'd be kind of sad that I missed because I always clip it for social because I think it's fucking crazy. Because I find people still go back and watch it. I'm like, with good reason,
It's fun. It's something different.
It's just different.
We watch the same thing every week. When somebody does something different, some fun, and makes it unique, it's fun.
You're like, I love it. I love it.
So look, I think it's going to be a good pay-per-view card, but obviously the stakes that are on the table, the ones that have the most impact, of course, the title fight between Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier, and then, of course, the co-main event, which a lot of impact in the middleweight division.
And it's a 5-round fight.
And Paulo Costa,
was it always a 5-round fight?
It was always a 5-round fight from the time it was announced, and I think it's the reason Sean Strickland is such a big favorite according to the odds makers.
I agree.
It has to be that.
I agree.
Because I was a little bit surprised to see that Sean Strickland at like minus 245, Paulo Costa at plus 200. Because to me, to be honest, especially early on, this to me is more of a I don't want to say pick'em type fight. Strickland is the more well-rounded fighter.
Yeah.
But Paulo Costa can hurt anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've seen Sean Strickland get hurt. He's tough to hit, but we've seen him get hurt. So I think the odds
that 3-round sprint would have definitely favored more into his favor.
But knowing like, hey, Strickland's going to be there in minute 23, minute 25. You know what I mean? Costa, like, I mean, no disrespect, but you give him like 7-8 minutes normally, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
he carries a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done better, but he just carries a lot of muscle, and he goes very hard. He throws very hard.
Speaking of throwing very hard, did you see his first pitch?
Oh my! Goodness gracious!
Look, baseball's not his thing.
He's probably never thrown.
He's a very nice guy. So I don't want to make fun of him because he's always a very nice guy.
He played it off
and
pretty decently well.
He could totally make my day bad.
Yes,
but it was funny, man. Like
he threw it and he turned to the side and he was just like, "Thank you very much. Thank you very much." When it's funny because we were chatting about it in our Slack group. He palmed the ball a lot. Like his fingers were all the way around it, almost like he was gonna maybe try to throw like a weird knuckleball or some sort of change up or something. Baseball. And so he throws it hard, and then it must have just came out. The release was just because he had his big fingers around
That's
it.
When
something.
You do this, it's going to fly weird.
And it was so funny. I saw it in multiple angles. I was like, it looks bad in all the angles I saw. But I appreciate how he just went about his day, turned to the crowd, bowed, acknowledged, clapped a little bit.
Any of you in the face that
He's
wants
like,
to come say something to me.
Say something.
Come say something to my face.
I always feel bad for like the catchers that have to like chase after the balls or they're running, but they're used to it. They get it. And I mean, who knows, man? I played baseball when I was younger, but who knows what happens? I haven't thrown a baseball in ages. Any of us could get up there and
I'd probably tear my shoulder out now. I'd probably tear my shoulder out now. You know what I mean? And on the mound,
and he was on the backside of the mound. A lot of people stepped forward. I thought it was kind of not ballsy because I mean he's a big, strong dude. But I was like, bro, you're way in the mound. Like they could have done him a favor and scooted him forward.
Bro, just go to the front, man.
Just go to the forward and just lob it. Just lob it. And he's like, no, I got this. I drank my juice today. I'm feeling strong.
So good. I love his branding's evolving with his secret juice, man. He's getting all the products out there.
Well, that's what I was saying. He was saying at the media day, he's like, he was talking about juices. Somebody asked about it, and I think it's already available. And what I understood what he was saying, I think it's already available in Brazil. I think he's talking about it had a powder that you mix, and so I want to say workout. So I'm thinking he must have like a pre-workout sort of powder or something like that, and that you mix or whatever. And he said that it's already available in Brazil, that it should be coming to the States soon. So interesting.
I was wondering about that because I didn't realize it had launched already. I knew he's been talking about it for a while, but I guess it would make sense to launch it in Brazil. Maybe his name's even bigger in Brazil.
A Brazilian partner that came to him and said, "Hey, throw your name on this."
Makes all the sense in the world. Meanwhile, I guess speaking of workouts and supplements and all those things, I guess the highlight of the Sean Strickland was
at least for me
was him complimenting your work as a coach, not indirectly, of course, but he was I guess admiring Hot T, Oscar Willis over there, admiring the gains that were being made.
He said he looked fit. And he was first he said he looked sharp. He thought he was well dressed, and this was I think shortly after or maybe before he said, "Look at the pirate next to you" or something when he was talking about Jose and his big Poor Jose, always catching strays from Strickland. But then he was like, he's like, yeah, I mean, you're looking good. You look like you're dressed up. You look like, he's like, you got a girlfriend or something. He's like, but he's like, you look fit. You look strong. And I was like, plug the gym. I knew he would. Obviously, like, I don't ever expect it, but I was just like, see the work we're doing? See the work we're doing? And I told him when I saw him sitting next to Conor for their little interview, I was like, bro, Conor's dropped some weight, so I was giving Conor credit for actually this is before Conor went back to his party cycles, his party circuit. That's just fucking crazy. But I was like Jose or Oscar, you look good. Well, like your size next to Conor. I was like, you look kind of swole. I was like, good for you. And Oscar's doing the work, man. I appreciate it. So it was just kind of funny hearing like Strickland say it. I was just like, see?
Complimenting your work. That was a compliment. Coach,
that's how I took it.
Coach Coffee out here, man. He's got personal records up on the board over there. He's scheduling out like when the max is, and when he's got the Pythagorean theorem.
It's a bit ridiculous, but it's working out. We're having fun. We're having fun with it.
We'll have a couple weeks to talk about Conor, but I'm torn on this, right? I'm torn on this because part of me goes, that's awful, and the other part of me goes, well, it's one night. And we know he's putting in the work. Like you can see it. And and that dude shows up in big spots like nobody.
Yep.
And again, it's just one night, but it's got to be at least a little concerning, right? Like, is that indicative of is it literally just one night he decided, you know what? I'm at the halfway point of camp.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna take a break for one night. We got a buddy in town.
Yeah.
We just got a business deal done. You know what? I'm gonna cut loose for one night, and I'm right back at it tomorrow. And if so, I don't think you can worry about that too much, right?
Even if it's just drinking or whatever, like even if I was looking at that, as a coach as I am that just did some gains, I would say even if he did go out and party, it's going to take him a week to get his body back running, and doing in the process, but that's it.
Right.
He's not depending on what he was doing. It's not going to blow it out crazy. The best part that I took out of the whole thing was that the woman that was pawing all over him and licking on his chest was his woman. And I was very, very happy.
That is true.
So when I looked at that, I was like, okay, maybe D wanted to go out and have some
Let's
fun.
cut loose tonight.
And then the man went out and was there supporting his woman and having a good time. So I'm not gonna fault him for whatever. I think he just blew off some steam. Dude's made of money. This fight game is just an extra little sort of thing. He doesn't need to win this fight.
It's fun. I'm glad you see.
I was just happy he was out hanging with D and he was having a good time. When I saw the woman, before I saw that it was her, I was like, Connor, what the fuck are you doing?
I know, right? I thought.
And then once I saw that, I was like, who cares?
Yeah.
I didn't care. As soon as I saw that, I had zero F's about it. I was like, the dude should be allowed to have a little fun. Is it smart to do? Bro, it's not a week out. It's not 2 weeks out from the fight. It's not 3 weeks out from the fight. I didn't really care. And literally a week later, it'll be fine. If it's a one and done, who cares?
I'm with you. I'm glad you see it the same way, because I was like, look, because you knew people were going to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a big story. But, like, that was my initial thought is, like, if he loses, it's not because of what happened tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. So
look at Ryan Garcia. Dude was on just a crazy, long fucking
I don't
bender.
know if we still know what is going on with him, man.
And then he was able to pull it together. You can't judge Conor on that one night of just whatever. Like, you're seeing already from just seeing interviews and seeing his body shape, he's doing work.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing work.
Yep.
So if we see more and more videos as the weeks get closer to the event, then I would have some concern.
If it's a pattern, it's a problem. If it's one night, a month out,
release some steam.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
But not.
Because obviously he's done a lot of work to this point. I'm sure at some point, getting and the biggest things that we see a lot of these fighters is the fact that they have to turn off their home life, their family life, the spending time with their friends and family to do the fight game. So for him, probably with the crazy schedule that he was doing movies, he was doing this, he had the movie tour, and then, okay, now I'm going to get into a fight camp. He's just spending more time away from the family. So if there was a time where he's like, I want to let loose with the family, I want to have some fun, you've earned the right to do it,
I'm with you.
So
I'm with you. Well, we got.
I'm just glad it was his woman.
I'm just glad it was his woman. I know at first I'm like, why is this video out? Like,
yeah.
I was like, okay.
I was so until I saw it was her. I was just like, Connor, what the f are you doing?
Yeah.
And then immediately it was like, I don't even care. I was like, have fun with your woman. Good job.
It's funny. So you touched on it, and it kind of leads perfectly into Dustin Poirier, right? Because a lot of people I think are making a lot of his quote unquote retirement comments. Now I think it is important to point out. He's said these things for a while.
Yeah.
That like he's just not sure how much longer he can do this. But it goes into exactly what you said, and he talked about it a little bit today at the media day. Like, it's just not good for you physically. Like you leave pieces of yourself in there every time you fight.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And by all accounts, financially, he doesn't need to fight anymore. Like he has done well for himself, and he's good. He's set up. He's good to go. But he still loves it. He said, it's not if he walks away from the game, win or lose, it's because he's had it. Like, no, that dude would want to fight forever. But, again, physically knows it's not good for him. And it's the other things that you just talked about, man. And it's just like your kids are starting to get older.
Family,
and you know what I mean? Like,
they all go through the fight camp with them.
It's terrible. It is the hardest sport on because you have to be totally selfish, especially at the highest level. You have to be totally selfish, cut all that stuff out.
Yep.
And put it all aside. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It kind of reminds me of, I love military families. I come from military families, and a lot of it reminds me of that, like the sacrifice that families have to do for the careers of their loved ones to go out and do what they need to do. Like they understand if dad's gone, okay, well we got to pick up the slack. Or if it's the mom that's a service woman off to the side doing her thing, the family picks up the slack.
Yeah.
So in this case, like here, where these fighters, they go off and they do their thing, and then the family gathers around and everybody takes care of it. They take that load. So those wins are shared by them. The losses are shared by them. The highs and lows are shared by all of them. You see all those clips of when, the fighters are able to pull off the big wins and you see the joy in their family in the crowd. I think it's hard for nobody to get I know every time I see it, it moves me.
Oh,
I'm like,
bro, it is so the loved ones that have to watch this from the
Yeah.
sidelines. It is gut wrenching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what they're going because they want to help so bad. And I said and I say it often, but I'll say again, the thing that literally breaks my heart is when a fighter loses like that and they come out and the first thing they do is they apologize.
Yeah.
They apologize to their family. They apologize to their team. It's like, bro, you ain't got nothing to apologize for. Like, you went in there and did your thing, you know what I mean? Like, we'll never do this. And it's so hard to see that. So, those words that he's saying up there, man, they ring so true. But I think a lot of people were just taking it to be like, oh, is his heart really in this? Or is it, you know what I mean? Like, hell yes, his heart is in this, man. And I heard somebody bring it up, and it's true. It was a fair question. I'm not picking on the reporter at all, but, a reporter brought it up, well, some people say that if you're thinking about retirement, you're kind of already retired, you know what I mean? And that's a fair question.
Yeah.
But I think you have to frame it the right way, and that he's just trying to be smart about it and knowing that, like, no, I'm not really thinking about retirement, but I know I can't do this forever. You know what I mean? For both the physical reasons and for the toll it puts on my family. So this is a big moment, man. You can't be a fan of the sport and not be a fan of Dustin Poirier, right? You know what I mean?
100%.
You're going to be pulling for him. If it was a Hollywood movie, Dustin Poirier definitely hits the guillotine, jumps the ghillie, gets the submission, takes this Michael Bisping-esque career arc at the end of his career. But it's going to be tough. It's just a tough matchup.
I mean, and you go back and when even the talks of the retirement and just talks of like what's next. Dustin's always been very, very open and wears his heart on his sleeve and he talks about stuff. And you go back and because I was going back and I was clipping some post-fight stuff to use on social. If you go back and listen to the different shades, go back and listen to the loss after Oliveira.
Mm-hmm.
You go back and listen to after the loss to Gagey at 291, and you go back and you listen to the win after the win of 299. After all of them, it was always about going back. Talked about going to see his family. See what's next. Do I want to go back through this sort of thing? And it wasn't a matter of like, okay, I need to retire right now. He's like, if my heart's still in it, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna push. And that whether he won like he did after the Benoit Saint Denis or after he lost, that the message stayed the same. As long as the joy and the love is still there, and I want to go through this again, I'll go through it again.
Yeah.
I will get back up to that title shot. I will get back there. So like it's not something new that there's ever this doubt of like this whole. If my heart's still in it kind of thing. I mean, this is, I think, something that fighters think about all the time, whether they're at the beginning of their career, whether at the end. And for Dustin, he's been saying that sort of thing for a while now. And it's just because he's been at the highest part. I mean, he's done everything except for have that unified belt. I mean, he's had the joy of having the gold. He even mentioned it in the media day today. Somebody's like, I know you said that you haven't had like the undisputed title, but he's like, but at home I'm sure you got a belt. And he's like, yeah, I do have it. It has my name and it says world champion on it. But he knows for a fact that
that's not the undisputed.
It's not
title.
the undisputed one. And to get up to that level and then to lose or whatever, and then to realize, do I want to keep going back in that rat race just because he knows what it does to his family? We've seen plenty of videos where you see his family affected by his loss. You see his family when they're elated after his wins, and it's hard. And part of that discussion he says he always wants to have, it's not just about is Dustin ready to go through it again, because now he has a team and he has a family that goes through the same thing. And part of it, do I want my family to go through this again? Do they want to go through it again? If they're willing to do it, because Dustin loves doing it.
He loves it.
He loves the challenge.
He loves it. It's
a team thing.
It's such a hard thing, right? Because I don't know, and again, we've touched on before. He touched on today, right? He's like, look, when I got into this as a teenager, it was to be the best in the world, and I haven't been that yet. I've been the interim, but that's different. I haven't been that yet. And it's not about the Hall of Fame, and it's not about the records, and it's not about all that. And I get that. Like I respect the hell out of that drive. But I hope if for whatever reason, because I'll be honest with you, if I'm making a pick, I'm picking Islam in this fight.
Yeah.
My heart is pulling for Dustin Poirier tremendously. Love that guy. But what I hate to think about is that, and he will, like he's mature and he understands what this is, but he will be heartbroken if he comes up short. But I don't know that there's many guys more universally loved, more universally respected, more universally admired than Dustin Poirier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for who he is as a person, for what his accomplishments are, for his fighting style, for the way he represents the sport, for all those things.
Yeah.
Similar to a Frankie Edgar, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Where it's like, if Dustin Poirier loses on Saturday night and decides to call it a career, there's no doubt in my mind that he's in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt in my mind that he is a legend. There's no doubt in my mind that, again, you'll never hear somebody say a bad word about him. And I hope, and he kind of touched on today, that he's trying to learn to be accepting of all that as well. I'd love for him to win the title just so he can say, like,
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
All this journey was worth it. I did it. But if he doesn't, I just hope he can come to the realization that, you know what? I didn't get exactly what I set out for, but I did a hell of a lot of good stuff on the way.
Yeah.
You know?
And look what he's doing on the outside of it as well. The Good Fight Foundation is fantastic.
Amazing.
Like he's doing such good things that he's using his platform, and like you said, it's hard for somebody to find somebody that generally has a reason to dislike Dustin. Unless you're just like, oh, you beat the shit out of me, I don't really like you, but I respect
Conor
you.
McGregor, maybe.
Yeah.
It's Conor McGregor, and you're like, I don't like this guy.
So it would be wonderful for his story, to have that undisputed. But even then, it's like, I would be so happy that, for me personally, just knowing that if he got that happy ending, I don't even need to see a defense.
Right. No.
I would love to see him get the undisputed and just be like, guys, this was really awesome. I've reached my goal. That's enough.
That'd be amazing. What a way to go out. You know what I mean?
It would be spectacular.
Again, there's nothing. The guy has nothing to prove. You know what I mean? Right now, he's just doing things for himself. It would be amazing to just be like, you know what, man?
Yep.
Hey, it would be amazing to be like, Islam, tomorrow you can have this back. But tonight, I'm the best in the world. And that's all I needed.
And even for him, for his family, it would just be so nice. I feel like even because I talk about the family feels like probably that they've been so close.
Mm-hmm.
That would be so nice for them to just be like, for them all to bask in that win and just be like, all our efforts were rewarded. I'm sure they're pretty happy with what they've got right now because he's created a great life for them.
Yep.
They have this great foundation. The family they're all happy. They're healthy. As a man, he's already done his job. He's already done his job. It's so fantastic to see. So anything at this point is icing on the cake, but it would be so great just to see that nice little bookend
I'd love to see
on his career. And then I don't need to see anything else. I don't need to see that. It's hard to say that because you don't want to be like, bro, I'm going to retire. If you win, I'm retiring you. You need to stop. Just stop there,
Obviously, he would have the right to do what he wants. I've seen people saying, well, can you imagine if he wins? And can you imagine if Conor beats Michael Chandler? And then they go, let's run it back one more time with the belt on the line.
If he wanted to do it, I would be hip to watch
100%. If he wants to do it.
But he seems like he's good without it.
Bro, if he wins the title on Saturday night and says, you know what I want to do? He's like, I'm the one that wants to face John Jones. Like, I don't care about timeouts. Dustin Poirier, you can do that. Sir, you have earned the right to do whatever you want.
Would that be a shitty call out?
Oh, that'd be, dude, yeah.
People would just be like, Dustin, you had your moment. That's the call out? That's the call? People are giving Buckley shit for calling out Conor like this. Would just
by the way,
ridiculous.
I thought that people were giving Buckley way too much
Way
grief.
too much crap for it.
Way
like,
too
who
much
cares?
grief.
Like, he won. He can say whatever he
And
wants.
if you're going to say it, like, I said on the and a half at the time, is like, if you're going to say it, at least say it creatively the way he said it. You know what I mean? Like, have a whole thing laid out. But anyway.
Yeah, people are hating on it.
I would, man, in my heart, if I'm the script writer, you know what I mean? They give me the script. My script is Dustin Poirier wins, walks away with the belt. You know what I mean? That's it, and he's done.
I feel like maybe we're asking much. I feel like we asked that for Max and like the BMF belt. I felt a lot of people put all their best wishes to have Max win that fight to get that BMF belt. Not that they were wanting him to walk away afterwards, but I think a lot of people put.
I think the MMA guys,
good comment.
The
MMA guys
like, bro, we gave you one.
They gave us one.
We gave you one.
Like it's going to be tough to get this one, especially so close. But it would be fantastic, and that's no slight of Islam. Islam will get the belt back at some point. It's just like that team understands who they're fighting. They're fighting an idea. They're fighting a representation. An American that a lot of people can be proud of. Strickland was an American champ, but a lot of people are like, that's not really my champ. I think Strickland's hilarious, even though like he was like firing a lot. A lot of people caught strays today. Today he was back to being a bit extreme.
Little crowd work.
But like Dustin was like an American champ that people could have been proud of, that can be proud of.
Yep.
So it's like Islam. I won't be upset if you get your belt back.
Nah.
But it's like, can we have this one? Can we have this one?
I know.
But it's a tough ask for Dustin. I mean, I did pick Islam in our staff picks, as much as of course you want to pick the guy that your heart's telling you, but you gotta think smart, man. And Islam is just, he's a beast, man. He's a beast, and the fact that we saw what he did to Volkanovski, he's not a one-trick pony anymore. Like, people just think, oh, he's just going to get you down, and he's going to do it.
Nah.
Now, do I think it'd be stupid to try to make it a kickboxing striking match with Dustin? Yes, that would be very stupid.
I think it would.
But the fact to think that Islam has no striking would be an absolute mistake.
100% agree with you. That was another thing Frankie said. He was like, man, I love Dustin. He's like, it's just a shame that he had to be at the top when Habib was at the top and when Islam was at the top. He's like, if this wasn't for those two guys, like, this dude could have been champion. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I'm with you. That's the scenario. And again, no slight at Islam. I got no problem with him winning. I'd love to see the storybook ending, but I don't think it happens. Who did you pick with Sean and Paulo?
Strickland. Yeah,
me too. I do think, again, the 5 rounds swings it favor in Sean Strickland, but Paulo's like, I think you're silly if you don't give Paulo a chance in those opening 5 minutes.
Sean's got great head movement, and like, Paulo's gonna be coming in, he's gonna make big swings. I think he's gonna have a hell of a time trying to get Strickland down. I don't think he's gonna be successful in doing that. Strickland's just gonna push the pace. He's gonna get in his face, and he's gonna hit him. I mean, he's gonna hit him a lot. And if Paulo keeps swinging those big arms and he keeps missing, he's just gonna tire himself out. And then it's gonna be Strickland just marching him down.
I agree.
And in that one, it didn't. I don't know. I mean, I feel pretty strongly about that one. I'm not very questionable on that one.
It's one of those.
That doesn't mean that it's right, but I certainly feel like Strickland has a much better chance.
I 100% agree with you on that one. Because I do think like that one feels like this should be Sean's fight, but it's just like Paulo early though. Paulo early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Be careful.
Well, I mean, you look at. I mean, it's not like MMA math always adds up, but you look what Izzy was able to kind of do on Paulo, and then look what Sean did to Izzy, and it's just, okay. Like, if you have two guys, if you have guys that are really have high-level striking that just have a very unique striking style like Izzy does and like Strickland does, it gives Costa a hard time. Mm-hmm. It just gives him problems, and I see that being again. And I mean,
I agree.
He talks a great game and he does whatever. He's
fun.
He's fun.
He's fun.
But I think Strickland's just going to be too much for him. I mean, if you can't throw a pitch and get it to the pitcher, to the catcher, like, what are you going to do when you're in a fight? I mean, clearly that it's the same.
MMA math doesn't always work, but baseball math, unbeaten.
There's like a movie out there about the stats. Like, if you can't throw the pitch,
this is Moneyball. This is Moneyball. But it's Moneyball.
Moneyball. I like it.
All right, the gloves. A lot of talk about the gloves.
Woo!
Interesting, right? Because people seem to have some strong opinions.
I don't know why. Like, recently, lately, and like maybe it was just fight week, I feel like you certainly hear the voices of them not liking it. Like, it seemed like everybody before was like, okay, we're excited to try it. We're excited to this. It looks like this. And then Strickland shit on it today. Yeah. Dustin was the only person that said they liked it. But Strickland, I mean,
Islam said he didn't like it, but he just said they wear out too fast. So that doesn't matter in a fight.
Yeah,
it's
they're one and done.
He's
like,
when I train with them for 2 weeks, they're no good. Like, well, they're not. They're fight gloves, not practice gloves. So, but yeah, Strickland, man, he was.
That kind of goes to like what Dustin was saying. He's like, I like the padding and molds around, but he's like, I really feel like your knuckles are gonna
feel it more.
You're gonna feel it through. So that's probably what Islam's reference to, the fact that maybe the padding breaks down quicker.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see.
One of them did say, maybe it was Islam too. They said that it forced the
I think
fingers
it was Dustin
more.
Said it does
because that's force your hand. That was what they were trying.
Because we've talked about that in the past, right? Like, is that he said, and I think what he says, it makes it easier to make a fist, right?
To close the fist.
Because that's what I think people were a little surprised because they wanted them to be, because like those Everlast gloves actually like force your hands to
they're
curve.
curved.
These don't do that. But as we talked about before, if you've ever grabbed the old UFC gloves, if you get a brand new one, which they get brand new ones every time they fight, it's almost hard to close your hand. It almost bends back the other way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like when you have get a brand new baseball glove, you have to break it in.
You got to break it in.
You got to break them in.
So I'm interested to see. What I'm interested to see. We'll see him in action, and we'll evaluate and decide. But
to see the gold ones for the first time.
Ooh,
well, I guess for the first time when we saw him in that little exhibition.
In action.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I'm just interested if it does, because psychologically, right? Like, man, a lot of these guys we talk about, like the nerves and the variables and all that there is. Man, if something doesn't feel right, you know what I mean? Like, dude, you see guys that no, rewrap my hands, no, that ankle wrap, rewrap that, or you know what I mean? Like, something just doesn't feel right, and it throws them off a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if, maybe nobody would ever admit to it, but maybe afterwards, it's, I don't know, it just didn't feel right, or it does give psychological plays.
Yeah, it does give me hope that if Islam said that he's been working out with them already, that all these athletes have them in their possession.
I know they were allowed to. I mean, they were told they could. I don't know if they necessarily
don't show up on fight night and
wear them
have them for the
time.
first time. Then like what you said is going to be an issue. 100%.
Yeah.
Like if I've never put them on there, like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like this. Was
you're going to
there's
fight.
Nothing
in
you
5
can
minutes,
do about it. You know. So hopefully everybody did that and took that, because I think that would be a really, really silly just check mark that you didn't, tick off
why did you not practice in these gloves?
100%.
All right, man. So UFC 302, looking forward to it. Like I said, bummed. I guarantee you I will be sad on Saturday night. I was sad when I canceled everything. I've accepted it now. I know I'm going to be sad on Saturday. I know right after the fight's over, I'll be happy.
But Sunday you're going to feel really, really good.
That was a great decision, John.
That was awesome.
But yeah, so I look forward to 303 International Fight Week, being back case after that when I was busy. Let me ask you something. I want to ask you your opinion on this. I want to see if I'm crazy in this. I tweeted something the other day. If you saw Ali Abdelaziz, he tweeted something out where he said, some promoters ruining and playing with a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I didn't dive into it, but I did see that.
He came back later and said, don't think I'm talking about PFL and Bellator. So I don't think he's talking about the UFC. He's there at Fight Week. I think maybe he's referencing one, but I don't know for sure. But he doesn't have a lot of people in small regional promotions. You know what I mean? He doesn't really mess around with a lot of regional levels. So I don't know. But I tweeted this out. Delicate times right now. One doing more Muay Thai and grappling than MMA, which is factually true. PFL and Bellator merger eliminates one potential bidder for services, which is factually true. And that group seemingly trying to make more conservative financial decisions. Feels like a big market shift at the moment with free agency. Now, I do think that it's a little bit I feel like the market has shifted. It wasn't that long ago where everybody was basically saying, fight out your UFC deal, see what value's out there on the open market. And that's still not a bad idea. Yeah. There's never a bad idea to just go see. But I felt like it was much more, maybe a year ago, conducive to actually leaving the UFC. There were people making big plays, people making big strides. And a lot of people are ripping on PFL and Bellator. And I'll say this. Don Davis's comments about Kayla Harrison, I thought, were completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
That was a swing. And I know Don and Pete Murray are the perfect yin and yang for each other, right? Don is I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be wild, I'm going to crazy, I'm going to say stuff. Pete's the buttoned up, I'm going to be Lorenzo Fertitta over here. And not that he's trying to be Lorenzo, but just, you know what I mean, the more serious business type, that's what we're doing. So I know Don considers himself a disruptor. He likes to stir the pot.
Yeah.
But I felt that was a big swing and a miss. So I cannot defend him in even the slightest in those comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you never expect that person to come back to your organization, right? If you're going to go that route, right, you know she's never going to come back.
It's
right?
just terrible. So I didn't like those comments. But here's one thing. So there's this thing, Gegard Mousasi came out and was talking about some things, and there's some frustration, right? This occurred to me though. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of things that I've heard happen that as the sale or the merger was being finalized, some contracts were kind of pushed through on the back end that maybe nobody knew about as kind of a favor to hey, we'll throw you on this new whatever. And if that's the case, that's for legal people to work out and all that if it was done wrong. But I will say this, and again, I know this doesn't sound great, but isn't it smart for PFL, Bellator, to be looking at contracts, and if they see a contract that they flag as this is far beyond our budget for what we can responsibly pay right now. Now, we at that point, if they decide that, and from what I understand, this is what they've been trying to do, is try to renegotiate these deals. And these fighters saying, I don't want to renegotiate my deal. I got a deal. I'm good with it. And at that point, like Gegard Mousasi, you got to let him go. You got to let him go. Now, I'm going to be really interested with Gegard where he ends up, because does the UFC want him back? I'm not sure at this point in his career. One, I don't know. They're not doing that many MMA fights. As happy as I was, and I still like the one championship product. I love, like I said, that you see the best striking in the world. You see the best submission grappling in the world. I mean, they really are getting the best of the best.
Yep.
They're just not doing a ton of MMA, right? BKFC, I see a lot of people talking about BKFC. True, and BKFC is generating buzz, and then this Conor McGregor thing is a big deal, but it's not MMA. If we're just talking about MMA, it feels like there's less options on the table right now. But I say all that to say, am I crazy in thinking that, like, rather than criticize PFL, Bellator, isn't it wise of them to be evaluating these contracts, and if they decide it's too expensive, like, not spend that money and go bankrupt like every other organization out there has done? I mean, I don't think people realize that, like, not many MMA organizations are profitable at all. And so if they're saying, hey, these contracts don't jive with what we can afford financially, would you like to revisit them, or would you like to compete elsewhere? I don't know that they need to catch grief for that. I mean, I know that's not a popular thing. It's not going to make them. It's not going to make people happy. But for them being financially it just seems like it's being financially responsible. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get anybody paid less money. I just feel like we want these companies to be around, right? Bellator was going away. It kind of did go away. It's still around in principle, but since it's with another organization, they're not going to bid against each other. So it's like, rather than just spend all the money and go bankrupt, I don't think it's a bad thing to reevaluate contracts and be like, look, man, we can't do this.
It's just a normal course for business, you would think. At some point, they're going to look at their bottom line and be like, okay, is this sustainable? I think a lot of people were thinking about, for the PFL and even Bellator, were overpaying fighters. That kind of sounds shady, because you're like, oh, overpaying compared to what? Compared to the UFC, which everybody says they're underpaying people.
Right.
They were able to go over, and they were able to get these great contracts that they were happy for. And then when things came down, that company was absorbed by somebody else. And they're going to go through. It makes sense that they would go through and say, all right, well, let's look at all the line items. Let's see what these things that we have agreed to. If they agreed to the contract, you would think they would honor the contract. At some point, even if they had that, if the business changes, sometimes you have to go back and reevaluate things and make hard decisions. And if the decision to them were like, sorry, we just doesn't make sense for us to keep the contract how it currently is. We'd like to renegotiate with you, and if not, we will give you your freedom to go elsewhere.
It happens in business places everywhere.
Yeah. And then that person has the option to say, okay, it's a bidding war at that point. It's like, do you stick to your guns and say no? Because it's tough. I mean, like, I think any of us, you work for a company and you build up to a certain salary, and then you want to stick around, and they're like, well, this position is kind of going away, but we can transition you to this other position that maybe is at a lesser position that's lesser pay, but we keep you around. Nobody really wants to make that decision.
Right.
And they say, okay, well, I hate to say this, but then we're gonna have to cut ties, and you could try to go elsewhere. I mean, it happens all the time. But it's just tough to ask somebody to accept less money because it's so hard to build back up to that range. But it happens everywhere. I can't fault the PFL for wanting to save money. And do I think that Mousasi has a place in the UFC? I don't think the UFC would take him back.
I don't either.
I mean, Dana said over and over and over again, we're in the process of getting rid of people that we think are nearing the end of their careers. And if Mousasi was this guy that moved the needle and was crazy, like, look at MVP. If he was like an MVP and he was a guy that people were clamoring to want to come watch,
right?
People are going to pay for that. The UFC would pay for that. Mousasi, as much as I like him and as much as he's given us some great fights over the year, he's on the downward end of his career.
38. What I mean?
He's got maybe 2 more years in him. The UFC is not going to pay for a fighter that's going to be retired in maybe 2 years. And that's to make it to 40 is tough. And that could be 4 fights, and that's tough.
And with the money that he is going to command and going to request, he's going to have to face elite level competition.
Yeah.
And again, so I'm not picking on, and I don't want to make it seem like picking on Gegard myself because I like
No,
Gegard
I understand.
a lot.
He's stuck to his guns.
He's not a big needle mover.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, he's a great fighter. There's no question about it. I mean, some of his run is incredible, man. Some of the run that he had outside the UFC, some of the wins he had in it. But I don't know, like, if you want to be critical of the UFC and feel like, I don't think the UFC, as you said, I don't think the UFC pays enough. I think the UFC, a higher portion of their revenue should be given to fighters. If you want to say
100%.
that, if you want to say that about the company that is profitable, then I think that's fair. But if a company is losing money or struggling to make it ends, I think you almost have to praise them for trying to extend the life of the company by making smart financial decisions.
Every year, I feel like we have the discussion. We're like, is PFL going to be around? I feel like we always are like, oh, wow, they secured money again.
Right.
They got this TV deal.
Yep.
They just keep going. When they were saying all these things, and they kept saying, like, oh, we're going to give out $6 million at the end of the year, which now we realize it's not like they give $1 million checks.
Right.
Like that whole thing kind of like.
$6 million total.
Yeah, like kind of, and it's like after the run of the tournament, you
Yeah.
add it all up, and it's like, okay, that shiny thing that everybody was saying is not really a thing, It's just. It's tough, but I mean, I want the PFL to survive. I wanted the Bellator to survive. I want one to survive. I want the UFC to survive. I want regional things to survive. But at some point, they have to operate as a business. Like if nothing runs off just hopes and well wishes, there has to be people, unfortunately, making smart decisions. And does that mean, could they have cut some executives to maybe, keep some bigger ticket fighters?
That never happens in the real world.
That never happens.
That never
and
happens.
It's not going to happen here. Like if it doesn't happen at corporate office A down the street, it's not going to happen at PFL. It's not going to happen at the Bellator or whatever. Gegard stuck to his guns. He wanted to try to keep the money that he wanted. Nobody wants to take a pay cut to stick around if that was
Totally get
even
it.
the option. I don't blame him at all.
I think faced with that reality, 90% of people plus would say no.
No, I'm going to try
salary,
elsewhere.
I'll go elsewhere.
But like you said, the market outside of in the big things that can even pay that is shrinking. To even expect the one to maybe just pick up the bill and say, like, I'm just gonna mosey over to one and one's gonna take care of it. That's a highly suspect ask, especially because, like you said, they're doing a lot less MMA on their content. They're finding their niche, and part of their niche is not just in MMA. Yep. It's a lot of these Muay Thai, a lot of this other stuff going on.
Grappling.
So to think, he needed to, and again, I don't want to feel like I'm picking on him. Like when you look at the market that's outside, if he doesn't think that he's going to get back to the UFC, and he doesn't think that one's going to give him that one's going to be a possibility, there is no one else. There is no one else in the MMA sphere.
At that high level of pay, that's it. And so I think it's a scary time for you. I still think you should fight. I still think it's worth it to fight out your contract and see what those other organizations would pay. But I feel like about a year ago, it was almost like fight out your contract because those organizations will pay because they were trying to get these big names. You know what I mean?
They were outbidding people. They were outbidding each other.
I don't think that's the case right now, man. I don't think that's the case anymore. So I still think it's wise to test your value on the free agent market. But, man, I just don't think it's wise to count on the fact that other money is going to be there. And, again, I just want to say I understand – the PR criticism of Don Davis and that comment on Kayla Harrison, I 100% completely understand. But a lot of people I saw that were like, PFL and Bellator has ruined the sport. What are they doing? Like, dude, if you want them to stick around, they have to make wise financial decisions, not just burn money. And at
this point, he has his freedom to go out, try to see what he can do. And that doesn't mean he can't come back and renegotiate at a lesser route.
Yep.
At a lesser rate.
Still can.
He still can.
Still come back.
It's not like he can't come back.
Burn a bridge, right?
So, I mean, there's always the possibility. But, he has his freedom now to try. And if it doesn't work out and he wants to still keep doing this, I mean, he is getting older. I mean, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that, like we said, in 2 years he was going to be done anyways. Mm-hmm. So, if he gives it a little chance, but say if he burns a year in trying, then at that point, it's like, good. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Because most times you want to go in and get multi-year contracts to kind of secure the thing. Are they going to want a guy that's fighting, 42, 43? It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So it's a tough spot. He probably as well saw it like this is the last chance to get this
This
money.
last time I can
So
negotiate a contract.
I got to fight for these. I got to fight for
So
my
true.
numbers right now. You
So
know.
true.
So I don't blame him.
And
I don't
look,
blame him.
BKFC might be the option. You know, Ben Rothwell has been the one that I've used as a gauge all the way along. You know, he's been just saying how much easier it is to train for BKFC on his body than it is for MMA because he doesn't have to do the grappling rounds. You know, it's basically just boxing and cardio.
Is Karate Combat paying? We saw Rocco go over there, and Sam
Combat,
Alvey was
Karate
there.
Combat is, you know, an option for some as well.
Especially Gegard.
Yep. Especially for Gay Guard. Yep. Karate Combat should be worth mentioning them as an option as well.
I mean, I'm sure I'd have to go back and look at what his money. I'm not sure what he's getting. I'm sure he's getting what?
I'm sure it was good.
150.
Oh,
more.
I bet more.
250.
More. Yeah.
Whew.
I bet more.
But I mean, that might be a smart option, you know, as a possibility. But you know, maybe on something like that, then you can even accept less money because it's not a full MMA fight.
Right. It's a little bit easier.
You know? It's a little bit easier
on your body.
on him.
You can turn around a little more frequently. You can do some things. So
So I mean, good on him for sticking to his gun because I mean he needs to try to make the most money that he can because in that it's he has a limited window left. You know, but I certainly am not going to shit on the PFL or Bellator because they chose to let a guy go.
I saw a lot of that and I felt it was unfair. Like I'm actually hopeful. Because it feels like they're not trying to make the mistakes. I feel like all these years that we've been watching the sport, we've watched the same, like just people come in and make the same mistakes over and over and over. It's like, bro, did you know if we just pay like $3 million, we can get these people from the UFC? Yeah, but can you support that with income and revenue? You know what I mean? It's like, well, if we just do enough events, man, the investors will come. Well, guess what? When the investors come, they're taking part of your company, and they also expect return on their money.
Expect returns.
Investment money isn't just funding money.
It's not charity.
They want it back.
Yeah.
And they want it to have some friends with it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what was Mr. Wonderful. I think on Shark Tank, guys, like I'm going to give you these, but I want them to come back with friends. You know what I mean? Like they want returns on their money.
We want PFL to stick around.
Yes.
We want PFL and whatever form of Bellator that we have, we want them to stick around. We want them to be an opportunity for fighters to have an aspect, an avenue somewhere. So whatever they need to do, I mean, we just want them to stick around. I mean,
100%.
They do put out a decent product. I mean,
and it's an option for people to compete.
It's an option.
Man. It's a place for people to go. You need places for people to go, or there's no reason to do it. You know, why did it take so long for women's MMA to develop? Because there was nowhere for them to fight.
Yeah.
So until the UFC opened the doors, there was no reason for a woman to train full-time in MMA because there was no way she would ever get paid for it. You know what I mean? Same thing here. If there's not places for people to go fight, they're not going to fight.
Yeah. And I mean, and a selfish side as well, if there's not organizations to cover as a media member, if we're not covering fights, why does my job exist? I'll have to start going back and shooting random commercials and other crap that I don't want to do. Wow. I have to go back to news, like local news. I don't want to do that.
I mean, dude, I wish we weren't. That's a whole nother discussion for day two. I mean, how much coverage do those organizations get? And I get it. That used to be my biggest frustration. Is just like there's other organizations out there. We don't have to just write about Conor McGregor every day. You know what I mean? Like we should actually talk about some of these other places, but.
Yeah.
That's a whole different discussion. So, anyway. All right. Well, listen. I'm going to mosey on out of here. Got some things to take care of. Got a busy schedule. Made the mature
You made the right decision.
I made the adult decision, but not the decision
you didn't
I
need
wanted
to be
make.
there. You just made that. That was just because you wanted to see it. Like
100%. Just like 100%.
Your family's like, no. You need to be. You need family
100%.
time this weekend.
They're like, you have some things that you need to catch
Slow
up
your roll,
on.
dog.
And I was like, you're right. My wife did actually say, she was like, well, maybe you just fly out there for Saturday. And I was like, that's bougie.
That would be a waste of money.
I was like, that I'm not doing.
No hotels the whole time. Just fly for the
out
event.
there, straight to the venue, straight back to the airport. Not even just bring a briefcase, maybe.
Ooh.
I've done crazy.
That's
things.
only if you really just enjoy being in airports. That is not for me.
That's true. All right. Well, listen. Appreciate everybody that supports us over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. We will have an half episode as usual. So at least that'll be easier to do here on the Pacific time zone and not rushing to an airport. So thank you to everybody that supports us over there. If you want to help support us over there, it's as little as $3 a month. You can do exactly that. So we certainly appreciate it. But if nothing else, just make sure you're checking out the show. Make sure you rate us, review us if you can. Make sure you tell somebody else. Whatever. Just make sure you listen. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening.